This week's book is The Day My Brain Exploded, a memoir by New Jersey native Ashok Rajamani. Ashok was getting ready for his brother's wedding when suddenly he lost his sight. All alone in a hotel room, he tried to figure out what was happening to him and why. As his sight slowly started to come back, he was able to find a phone and contact his brother. The groom rushed his brother to the hospital, and doctors were able to determine the cause of the temporary blindness. His brain exploded. Ashok was premature, and when the blood vessels were forming, there was an abnormality where tangled vessels sat like a ticking time bomb waiting to burst. For 25 years, the bomb sat waiting patiently. What better time to designate than right before a huge family function? The medical term for this is anterior venous malformation, better known as AVM. This former NYU-educated PR exec went from boardrooms to operating rooms. After an invasive brain surgery, Ashok had to relearn how to walk and other tasks that had once been second nature to him. He is able to recover, but what he finds is that he isn't the same person he was before. His parents are not sure if he can live alone. He no longer seems to have any sense of direction. Things that came easily to him before are not easy to him now. Ashok tells us not only about the symptoms he experienced after having the brain bleed, but also his feelings. As someone with personal experiences of family and friends with serious brain injuries, I was familiar with things like left side neglect, tinnitus, which is an intense ringing in your ears that you can experience after a traumatic head injury, and depression that one experiences after suffering as one does after an injury like this. Ashok shares with us how he found himself blaming his mother for causing him to have this condition. He also harbors resentment towards his brother for not having the condition. And Ashok deals with the fact that his father thought perhaps Ashok wouldn't come out of brain surgery alive or be at a functioning level where he'd be able to move back into his New York apartment and get back to work. Certainly a lot to absorb. I appreciated the rational side of Ashok, and he knew that his mother didn't cause this to happen. His brother wasn't a bad person just because he was healthy, and his father didn't deserve to be disregarded because he coped with Ashok's condition by being more realistic about the possible outcomes. But he wasn't able to let the rational side take over, the result being pure emotion, raw and real. It's a very accurate portrait of what happened to Ashok before, during, and after the brain bleed. I found this memoir to be a refreshing break from the books I've taken to read this summer. I'd recommend reading this book over the course of perhaps a rainy weekend, if we ever have one. Each week during the summer, I'll be reviewing a book I'm reading for you so you can decide if that book might make your library list. Next week, I'm reading The Shack by William P. Young. Don't forget to join in the conversation on Facebook where you can let me know what your thoughts on the book were or give a suggestion on what we should read next. I'm Leigh Pafford, and that's what's on my library list.